Hello everyone, it's Paige here for another day of Reborn with me, and in today's video we're going to be doing the base coat layer. The reason why we do a base coat layer is so that you can protect your baby's vinyl from any of the blue colors that you're going to be adding later, and if you make any mistakes it's easy to remove those mistakes with some odorless thinner. So first we're going to fill a half a tablespoon of your odorless thinner and 2 strokes of Flesh 08. So the way you use a stroke is you take your 1/2-inch mop brush and you gently tap it into your Heat Genesis paint. There's also from Bountiful Baby a color called Babyskin that you can order that's similar to this color, but it's Flesh 08 that I like to use. And you just lightly tap your brush on each side, and that equals 1 stroke of color for your paint well, and then mix really well in your flower paint palette. And we're going to be adding 2 strokes, so this will be 1. And now you need to reload your brush with the paint. Just lightly tap, you don't need to dig out the paint, and then add that to your color palette. And now we're going to be ready to start painting the base coat layer on our little reborn babies. You should have already neutralized your baby, and the first thing we need to do is add some of that color to our cosmetic wedge. And then we're just going to pounce this all over our baby's vinyl. And the way you pounce is you just lightly pounce and dab that paint all over the baby's vinyl. If you're really impatient like me, you can use a mop brush, to get that paint on there. But if you're wanting to take your time, you can just apply the paint using a cosmetic wedge. And you'll see later in the video that I'm going to start using my large mop brush. And the way you hold your baby's vinyl is you use either a larger paintbrush like I'm using here, or you can use a dowel rod, but it's necessary to have something to hold the vinyl and balance it while you paint so that you don't leave fingerprints on your baby's vinyl. And the other thing that I've noticed in painting reborns is that you do need to wear your plastic or vinyl gloves, because you don't want to leave any of your oils on your doll's vinyl. That way the paint won't stick to your oils of your hands. Say you have lotion on your hands or something like that, it will leave that residue. And then just make sure that you check the creases and the wrinkles of your baby's vinyl and make sure there isn't any paint that has collected there. Once again, we're just checking the creases. I use a dry brush for this step. It's a 1/4 inch mop brush that I'm using to go in between the fingers and the toes, and just make sure that there isn't any paint that is collected. And then we're going to put it on the drying rack to dry, and just pouncing that again and making sure everything looks good. Always check your vinyl before you bake, because whatever is baked on is really hard to remove later. I think this looks good, and so I think we're ready to do the next limb. If you've been reborning with me earlier, I was talking about how I like to make my videos real time so that you can paint with me and enjoy the painting process together as we paint our reborns. And so not very many of my videos will be fast motion. They'll all be real-time motion, because I think the best part of reborning is being able to listen to someone and paint along with them rather than get the instruction and then paint. I like to paint along with the reborn artist. So this is really, really important in the reborning process, is just to be able to paint along with your reborn artist. So if you're in a hurry to get started and you don't want to watch this video all the way through, that's fine. But make sure you watch the end so you'll know how to bake your reborn babies in your new wave ovens. I'm just pouncing again with my sponge and letting the baby flash off on the drying rack. The flashing off process is the odorless thinner evaporating. And so you need to make sure your baby's limbs are completely dry to the touch or flashed off before you bake in your oven. Here I'm using a large mop brush that comes in your brush set, and it applies the paint fairly quickly. Notice how much faster you can get the paint on, and then of course you can just pounce off all the paint using your cosmetic wedge. And get in between the fingers and in the crease of the elbow. A lot of reborn artists, when they first start out reborning, they will usually paint more than one baby at a time, because while one baby is baking, you can be working on your second baby. That way you use better use of your time, and you're not waiting for that vinyl to cool. Just as long as you're able to keep track of the baby's parts and make sure the limbs go with each kit. So that's why you have little dish towels or little soft towels to separate the vinyl as they cool so they don't get mixed up. This little baby kit that I'm working on right now is called Shannon from Ann Timmerland, and I really, really like this kit. I think she's so sweet and just darling, and so I've really enjoyed painting this kit. She was on my wish list of kits to start out when I first started reborning. Everyone has a list and they all choose different artists to go with, and I think Ann Timmerland does a really, really good job on baby kits. So if you want to find this kit, I will link it in the description box below. It is from Irresistible Doll Kits. Make sure when you're ordering your kits that you order the body to go with it and the plugs, the neck ring and the plugs. So that's one thing that is important, is that you get the right body for each kit that you order, because there's so many different sizes of kits and bodies that you need to make sure you order those together. All right, so we're just preparing a new sponge, and this sponge we are going to be taking the top part of the sponge and texturizing it so that the baby's vinyl in the next step will have a little bit of texture. To prepare a sponge, a new sponge, for the next paint layer, we are just using our fingers and plucking the top part of your cosmetic wedge to add some texture to your reborn baby. They're very easy to pluck with your fingers, but if you don't want to use your fingers, you can use tweezers. And now it's ready to start the next layer. So the next layer is a half a tablespoon of our odorless thinner, and you mix 1 stroke of the Flesh 07. 1 or 2, it depends on how thick you want your paint. And then just mix that in your paint well with the Flesh 08 that you've already mixed. So you mix the 2 colors together just to give it a little bit more depth. And you're ready to get started with pouncing on your baby's vinyl. I use my brush mop to go ahead and paint again with that. If you need to mix up a little bit more paint, you can do it in a jar or mix it in your flower palette. I like to mix up a little bit more paint and use a jar. That way I always have paint ready to use on my fair skinned babies at a moment's notice and just continue painting. So if you want to prepare paint ahead of time, just use the ratio of a half a tablespoon to 2 strokes of Flesh color, and that should be the right consistency. And then just pounce and soak up all the extra paint that you've left on the limbs. And be sure to check the elbows and in between the fingers and the toes, and collect all the paint that is gathered there with a dry 1/4 inch brush mop or your cosmetic wedge. If you're curious to know where I got my drying rack from, I'll link that into the description box below, as well as my measuring spoons will be linked below, the brush set that I am using, and also the paint palette and the cosmetic wedges. I'll link all those in the description box below. You may want to purchase a little box of puppy pads or a package of puppy pads from the pet store to protect your table from getting paint on it. I've seen people use paper towels, and that's very labor intensive because you have to roll the paper towels out and then replace them every time. Puppy pads are simple, and I use 2 puppy pads that covers the top of my table really well. And just continue painting like you did for the Flesh layer 08.
Looking up at a tree, I remember how it started. I was lost in a dream when the fire in my heart said an open rose. I've already found sunlight, the feeling grows, and anything sounds alright. I'm breaking loose, living in the moment in my own.
sunshine in the day. I'm trying to make this darkness go away. I'll paint with colors and I'll sing until my lungs give out. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day. And I will leave my windows open so that I can hear the sound of people talking and the wind blowing in the trees. Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly. Oh, and the darkness starts to fade. Feels like things are gonna go my way. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day. I'm gonna let the past be filled with smoke. And I will try to fix what has been broken. And take this weight off my shoulders, 'cause I know yesterday ain't coming back. I'm gonna let the past stay in the cold. I will listen to the ocean, let its unsaid words be spoken. And I'll let my mind be carried by the waves. Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly. Oh, and the darkness starts to fade. Feels like things are gonna go my way. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day.
Once you've painted all of the limbs, you can check the creases and in between the fingers again before you bake in your new wave oven. Just make sure everything looks just the way you want it. Also, if this video is a little long, I am so sorry, but I like to paint in real time. It just allows you to paint along with me and listen as you paint. And so that you don't have to watch and then rewind and watch again. You can just paint. We can just paint together. And so I always try to make my videos in real time. The only video that isn't in real time is the rooting videos, because they take so much longer and I don't want you to sit for a long period of time. So my rooting videos will be speeded up a little bit, but all of my painting videos I try to do in real time. So if you're really in a big hurry, you can always fast forward to the end of the video to see how I bake my reborns in the new wave oven. You don't really want to use your home oven to bake your babies because there are fumes that come from the vinyl that could get in your food, and you don't want to use the same oven that you cook with to make your babies. Just not very safe. So you can add as many base coat layers as you want. Each time you add a layer of paint, it just adds a little bit more to the baby's color. So if it looks a little bit fair, you can add a little bit more paint color and adjust the flesh tone. As it dries, it sometimes gets powdery where the paint was not blended completely, and just take your hands and brush over that vinyl to remove any powder. Also, you can use your nail brush, a soft nail brush, to blend Just checking all the creases. You may not be able to see the paint gather there, but it's best to go over the creases just in case there's something that you missed. All right, we're wrapping up the end of our paint day. Day, I believe 2. Oh, it's 3. Day 3. And one thing I like to do at the end of the day as I'm finishing up painting is I always like to clean my paint palettes out. And the way you do that is you just take a cosmetic pad. You can take a cosmetic pad or you can use a paper towel and just wipe your palette completely clean so that it's ready for a new day and you won't have a lot of paint buildup in your paint wells. And I just love these cosmetic pads that I get from the beauty supply store to clean out my paint palettes. All right, and once your vinyl is all dry or flashed off and dry to the touch, go ahead and put it in your new wave oven at 265 degrees for 8 minutes. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.